My name is Francis Merritt, and I was in the class of 1961 and came from Carver, Massachusetts to Aurora after we got married.
We got married one Saturday and we're out to Aurora by the next week. My name is Virginia Ginny Nichols Merritt, and actually I'm the class of 74 because it took me a long time to get there.
Well, actually, I came to Aurora because my best friend in high school, who was a missionary son to India, he fed clothing, was from Aurora College, and he worked on me all summer at youth camps. I was actually out recruiting for the New England School of Theology, working for them at a summer camp, and he convinced me that I should come, and when we got married, we both decided we'd like to go to Aurora, so I went and told the president of the New England School of Theology that I didn't think it was right for me to represent his school when I was going to transfer to Aurora College in the fall. So therefore we got in our little car that I bought for $50 in Boston. It had a rod knocking, and we drove it 50 miles an hour. Couldn't go on the turnpike because we couldn't go fast enough. And we got all the way to Illinois, and the tire went flat, and I worked at Salerno's A1 service out on the Route 20 there, and he gave me a tire. We stayed in a motel. The next morning the tire was flat on the other side. So that started our time at Aurora. We met with Ron Thomas and Dean Thomas, and he got us an apartment in Spartan Terrace, that famous place, and we had our own apartment in Spartan Terrace. We were there before school started, and we started working.
Very first week I got a job at Copley Hospital because I had graduated from nursing school, so I got a job at Copley Hospital, and he would go to class and then go to work, and then that's how our days went.
What I didn't remember, didn't know or pay attention to was that you're only supposed to work so many hours if you took a full load. Well, I was working 54 hours a week at Salerno's A1 service out on the main highway, and it did make it a little difficult for a few years, but it was better. I had to pay my own way through college, so that was very important. Obviously, I was there to go into the ministry, and Dr. Krause, Moses Krause, was a saint for me, and he got me started. But I took mostly theological classes and philosophy of religion with Dr. Teeter, and I had a full schedule, but at the same time I was interested in sports, so I also played baseball and basketball, and although I sat on the bench in basketball, but I did play a lot of baseball, eventually becoming the baseball coach and handling the team for a couple of years. And my greatest memory is we beat Lewis College. They had a 34-game win streak, and we went over. Fred Bornkamp was the pitcher, and we beat Lewis College, and Gordon Gillespie, the coach, was at the end of the season. We had a banquet, and he said, next year we're playing 3 games. He said, none of this 1-and-1 stuff. So the last out of the game was Ed Spezio, who went right from it was Lewis College at that time. I think it was St. Procopius now or something else. But he had 2 men. We had a 6-4 lead, and there were 2 men on base, and he hit one that was headed out of the ballpark, and Cal Myers, who works for Aurora College, made a great catch out in left field, and we won the game 6-4, and we caught them off guard, and we were pretty excited about all that.
I remember Dr. Crimmy's class in anthropology, and I still quote Mr. Trumbo's classes that he taught semantics and logic. Those were great classes. We have talked different times about how hospitable the professors were. I can remember having gatherings at Ron and Arvita Thomas's, and at the Crimmys and the Trumbos, Mim and Mark Trumbo. That I still have a recipe that I use 2 or 3 times a year that I make from something that Mim Trumbo made. She entertained the theologians, which was a group of women who were attached to the theological students, and she had us at her house, the couples, they were just so, and of course Marilyn and Roger became dear friends. And they're, as I'm sure everybody knows, they are very hospitable and wonderful cook.
So we had also Madge Fink and Hadley Fink,
That's right.
and they were really great friends. And her son David was a student at the time we were there. And actually I was the parish worker for the Advent Christian Church, and we had a youth group, and we used to sell wreaths, and Madge was always a very big boost for us in our youth work. And
we were head residents at Jake's Hall for 3 years, and it was really exciting. It was fun to get to know the boys. We had a big map on our wall of the United States, and we would put pins in where people were from, and we had a little birthday party every month for any kid whose birthday was that particular month. One night, one of the boys was repairing his transmission in his room, or they would be knocking at the door at ungodly hours for a change for the machines. But all in all, it was really a great experience.
needless to say, I was not unhappy to leave Jake's Hall. I was a nervous wreck by the time 3 years were up. They figured out that if they dropped a Coke bottle, or if they threw it down the corridor, it sounded like it was right on top of you. And so we'd be in bed and we'd hear this bottle going all the way down the corridor, and so on and so forth. Those were great moments, though. It was a lot of fun. And ping pong, of course, we had a ping pong championship, and everybody knocked on the door, wanted to play ping pong down. We didn't do much studying, but we did a lot of ping pong. And Roger Parolini was the champ. He could beat everybody. He was the best ping pong player on campus, and Kent Smith and myself used to love to beat him, but we couldn't. He was the tennis coach, and I was the baseball coach. And he never would play baseball, but he would play ping pong and win all the time. We love Roger.
Roger made those choir tours a lot of fun. We went to New England, but we also made a southern loop, and he always had good things, special things planned, which made it fun. You had to pay a fine if you were late,
penny a minute.
we would play rook on the bus. That was the game that everybody was playing at that time.
And then he warned all the kids in Florida, don't go out on the beach. You're not ready to be exposed to that sun. Well, of course, the girls went out on the beach, and that night, when they got up in the risers, and one of them was just red like a lobster. About the third song, she just boom went over, and someone grabbed her, and we carried her out, and they kept right on singing, and those types of things happened. We had a real good time doing that.
Our friends that we have now, the Storholts and the Smiths here in Maine, those are friends that we made in Aurora College, when it was Aurora College and not a university. So we feel very blessed to have made these wonderful friends and long-lasting friends and acquaintances. And of course, the schooling we got there was wonderful. It broadened our horizons. We were both from rather sheltered lives, and not that it was extreme or anything out there, but at least it gave us a chance to expand our horizons and broaden our knowledge. Growing up, my kind of faith was a very fundamentalist style faith, which is fine, but it really wasn't for me. I had a lot of questions, and I felt that I was able to ask these questions and address them, and not necessarily have them answered by anybody, but I was helped to explore some of these questions.
I guess one of the funny moments, getting to talk about President Stevens, we talked a little bit about baseball at prayer meeting one night at church, and when I told him that what I had to do in baseball, and we were talking baseball, and I said I actually threw at a batter's head and hit his hat and turned his hat around. And he couldn't believe that I would dare to do that as a Christian. And we had a very good discussion about what was Christian and what wasn't Christian when you're playing baseball. And that was kind of fun. But Dr. Stevens was kind of amused at that. And I would like to add that Dr. Stevens' wife gave me several of his interpreter's Bibles when he passed away. And I've passed those on to Kent Smith's son, Steve. And so Dr. Stevens' Interpreters Bibles is still functioning.
Speaking of Dr. Stevens, it reminds me of one prayer meeting night. We were talking, having a discussion, and I said I felt very sort of guilty almost about how blessed I was to be in a good situation and so forth. And he reminded me that if you are blessed with these things, then it's your responsibility to share that with other people. And he was very, very serious about that. The generosity and the kindness of the Aurora people was really extraordinary.
Spirituality, I would be very concerned if the spiritual life of the college did not continue to grow. I was very impressed to hear the president say that there is a good program going and a good theological program going. It's so necessary in our society right now.
But the same kind of good quality education, the wonderful experiences that students can have for themselves, and also to give them that realization that they need to share in some way with the people around them.